Time management can sometimes seem like a mystery. How can we possibly get everything done and still have any time left over to enjoy our lives? There is a solution, and it's surprisingly simple, but it takes more than just learning a few tips. By changing how you think about time and developing new habits, you can regain control permanently. Hi, I'm Dave Crenshaw, and in decades of consulting and coaching organizations of every size, from Fortune 500 companies to freelancers, I've developed a simple and effective approach to time management. It's more than a quick fix, it's a top to bottom solution. In this course, we'll cover the 3 principles of productivity: space, mind, and time. Meaning, you'll have a more organized workspace, increased mental clarity and focus, and a schedule built for productivity and balance. If you follow these principles, you can regain dozens of hours of free time every single month for years to come. Millions have used these strategies to regain control of their time while having greater flexibility to enjoy their lives. And I look forward to sharing it with you. This course has helped many learners permanently improve their time management skills. Because they acted and did something with the principles I share, they found it easier to develop lasting habits. The exercise files that accompany this course are important parts of that habit development. Occasionally, I'll ask you to pause and fill them out. Don't rush past those moments. Please download the exercise files now so you have them on hand. It helps to print them out because they're a bit easier to follow along as you handwrite your responses, but they're also form fillable as well if you want to use them on your computer. Now, let's get started. What would you do if you had an extra 10 hours per week? Think about it. If you had an extra 2 hours every workday, how would you reinvest that time? Would it be on hobbies? Would you spend it with friends or family? Would you reinvest it in your career? To become more productive and master time management, having strong motivation in mind is essential. So carefully consider this question. If you had an extra 10 hours per week, how would you spend that time? What I'll share with you in this course will help you get that free time, maybe even more. Those who follow this course gain at least an extra 10 hours of free time per week. They do it not by working harder or packing their schedule full, but by being a little more focused. Getting that time back begins with knowing your personal motivation. Decide right now what you'll do with that time once you get it. Write your answer down on a note card or sticky note. When I have an extra 10 hours a week, I will, and then fill in the blank. Put your answer somewhere you can see it. Then whenever you feel challenged during this course, look back at the answer you wrote. Remember your personal motivation, your vision of the future, and all the wonderful things you'll do with the extra time you'll uncover. Improving time management begins with understanding your tendencies. Do you favor focus or chaos? Consider this graph. On the left, we have focus, and on the right, we have chaos. Those who have always stayed on the left are focus masters, and they're rare. These people are gifted with organization and have never had any issue with productivity. They're frustrated with the inefficiency of people around them. They may say, just do it my way, but this rarely works. For focus masters, this course provides a simple way to help others become more productive. Those on the right of the scale are chaos masters, and they've always struggled with organization and productivity. Many chaos masters learn to be successful despite their natural tendency to be disorganized. They may have a cluttered office, yet claim they know where everything is. They may show up late or occasionally miss deadlines. For chaos masters, this course provides a simple way to be more efficient and focused without hurting their creativity or ability to build relationships. Those in the middle are nomads. I've found most people fit into this category. They may consider themselves inherently focused, but they've wandered from that tendency, and it's frustrating. If you're a nomad, this course can help you recover your lost focus and regain control. The Focused Chaos Scale helps you become aware of how this course can best help you. Many who've successfully completed this course have also found it helpful to learn where I, your instructor, fit on this scale. The truth, I'm inherently a chaos master. If you saw the way I operate now, you'd likely think that I'm a focus master 99% of the time. Yet in my past, you used to have to use a shovel to get from the front door to my desk. I also jumped from career to career, living in constant chaos. A psychologist determined I was off the charts ADHD. This awareness led me to build the simple systems of this course. This should give you some hope. Most time management systems were built by focus masters, and they're difficult for the rest of us mere mortals to follow. But the principles we'll cover here are simplified and universal, wherever you fit on the focus chaos scale. Many people who complete this program experience a near permanent boost in productivity. You can accomplish this by following these suggestions. First, schedule time to complete this course in as few settings as possible. 1 or 2 sessions are ideal, but a couple more are fine. This course has 2 major sections. Chapters 1 through 6 cover the core principles of the course. These are the big ideas you'll want to live and consider every day. It will take you roughly an hour to complete this section. Chapters 7 through 10 are the action section. These chapters are very hands-on. You'll start digging through your workspace, your email, calendar, and more to set up your system. These will take a couple of hours at minimum, maybe a few more depending on how chaotic things are for you right now. Block out time in your calendar to complete these sections. Overestimate how long you think they'll take and protect that time. Avoid any distraction or interruption that isn't a true emergency. Also, when I ask you to do something, please do it. Pause the video and complete the exercise. The emphasis on action is a bit like how professional athletes or musicians create muscle memory. You're going to create productivity memory as you practice new habits for dealing with time and work. Finally, focus on principles, not technology. It's easy to think that a new app, or the latest computer, or a new phone upgrade will suddenly improve our productivity. The truth? Technology alone doesn't make us more productive. Living principles that never change does. For example, one of the things you'll learn in this course is that you need to carry your calendar with you and use it consistently. The app you use and the brand of phone you're carrying don't matter as much as the commitment you make to live the principle. Does all this seem like a big investment of time and energy? I understand. Just remember that this investment can pay off in dozens of hours of free time every month. Ironically, the biggest obstacle to effective time management is a behavior many believe makes them more productive: multitasking. Attempting to multitask may feel effective, but it's actually counterproductive. In fact, it doesn't really exist in the way most people think of it. In my book, The Myth of Multitasking, I explain that what's occurring is either backtasking or switch tasking. You backtask when something that doesn't require your attention occurs in the background, like bread baking in the oven while you make a salad. Backtasking can be productive, but most people who think they're multitasking aren't backtasking, they're switch tasking. Switch tasking occurs when you try to do 2 or more attention-requiring tasks at the same time, like trying to watch this video while you're sending a text message. Switch tasking is a thief. It robs you of time, money, and your mental and emotional health. Let's experience switch tasking firsthand with a little exercise. To prepare, you'll need a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper. You can either print out the exercise file or simply draw 3 lines across a piece of paper. This gives you 4 empty rows. This exercise is timed, so don't start until I say go. You're going to copy this phrase in the first row. Switch tasking is a thief. Then in the second row, you'll write the numbers 1 through 21, 1 number for each letter in the phrase. Make your paper look like what you see on the screen. Got your timer, pen, and paper in front of you? Get ready, get set, and go. Now we're going to do this again, but we're going to simulate switch tasking. You're going to copy the phrase, switch tasking is a thief, in the third row, and all the numbers 1 through 27 in the fourth row. But this time, for every letter that you write in the third row, you're going to write the corresponding number in the fourth row. So you'll write S and then 1, W and then 2, I and then 3, and so on until you again fill up the third and fourth row. Get your timer, paper, and pencil ready. Get set, go. Notice the differences? This exercise highlights a primary goal of this course, to help you reduce attention switches as much as possible. Why? Because the biggest obstacle to effective time management isn't that we lack enough time to get things done. It's that we're trying to do too many things in the time we have available. Multitasking, or more accurately, switch tasking, forces us to pay switching costs, hidden time expenses we pile up hundreds of times per day. There are 3 main switching costs to switch tasking. First, the amount of time it takes to complete things increases, in some cases up to twice as long as the first time. Consider an everyday occurrence. You're responding to an email from a coworker, you're crafting a careful response, and then a text message comes in. Most will stop typing the email and check the message. They send a quick reply, then they have to return to the email and do what? Reread what they wrote, get their mind in the right place, and continue writing. This costs a lot of extra time, maybe a 5-minute loss or more. And when you consider Microsoft research found that workers on average switch apps 566 times per day, you can see how lost time starts to accumulate. Second, the quality of the work decreases, or the likelihood of mistakes increases. How many times at work have you seen someone given very clear instructions, yet they still messed it up? Frustrating, right? As I consult companies, I've found that when intelligent people make obvious mistakes, it's almost always a symptom of switch tasking, not incompetence. The third cost of switch tasking is stress. Switch tasking makes everything more stressful, even with something as simple as copying numbers and letters on a piece of paper. We have so many ways to reduce stress and so many time-saving devices, and yet we're more stressed than we've ever been. A big part of that is because of the cultural acceptance of switch tasking. Switch tasking is a thief. But the good news, when you reduce switches, you'll have more free time, you'll make fewer mistakes, and you'll feel less stress. 3 principles of productivity influence your success and well-being: space, mind, and time. Space refers to your physical and digital workspaces. When you reduce workspace chaos, you improve your focus and gain more free time. Most people experience a lot of chaos and lose a great deal of time because they have too many gathering points, places where incomplete stuff gathers. Gathering points can be physical, such as piles of paper or messy drawers, or digital, such as an overflowing email inbox. We're going to reduce your number of gathering points. Mind refers to your ability to stay focused. When you reduce distracting thoughts and interruptions, you're free to do your best work. Many people experience near continual distraction throughout their day. Unresolved tasks and projects create a lot of self-inflicted switch tasking. Don't use your mind as a gathering point. Think about the last hour. How many times did you mentally interrupt yourself? This is inefficient and it's stressful and a recipe for mistakes. Reducing interruptive thoughts will save time and improve the quality of your life. Some of my clients have even said it's helped them sleep better. And time refers to the schedule you create for yourself. When your calendar is focused on what's most valuable, you'll grow in your career and feel greater balance. Ideas and opportunities compete for your time every day. Those who are most productive make conscious choices about where they will focus their time. They focus on their most valuable activities, or what I call MVAs. They also create boundaries that protect their attention. The more you focus your schedule on these MVAs, the more valuable you become in your career, and that leads to greater freedom. At this moment, which of these three principles, space, mind, and time, is your strongest? Which is your weakest? As you go through the course, focus your attention on the greatest opportunity for growth. Let's explore the principle of space. We'll start by finding out how many gathering points you have. First, a couple of definitions. A gathering point is a physical or digital space where anything unprocessed gathers. Unprocessed means anything that's unresolved, meaning you haven't fully decided what you're going to do with it, when you're going to do it, or it's not where it belongs. If any one of those three things is missing, what, when, or where, then it's unprocessed. When you understand these definitions, you'll see that gathering points are all around you. Anywhere tasks, papers, projects, and so on gather is a gathering point. And the more gathering points you have, the more switching cost you pay. I've provided a worksheet you can download to determine how many gathering points you have. For each type of gathering point, add one on the worksheet. In the example, at the top of the worksheet, you'll see email inboxes. So if you have 3 email inboxes, such as personal, work, and a hobby inbox, then the number you put there would be 3. For desk areas, if you have 2 piles of paper on your desk, then you would write 2, and so on. Pause this video now and complete the Gathering Points worksheet. For many people, the worksheet you just completed is an eye-opener. Prior to completing this course, the average person has between 30 and 40 gathering points. The lowest I've seen from someone prior to completing this course is 8. That person was a focus master. The highest number I've ever seen from a chaos master is 161 gathering points. If you're way above average like this, that's okay. In fact, it's a good thing because you have a greater opportunity to save time. Whatever your number, we're all going to try to get to the same target, 6 or fewer gathering points. And you're already on the path to making that happen. To reduce the amount of switch tasking in your day and improve your focus, strive to have 6 or fewer gathering points. Now, 6 isn't a magic number. You may have more gathering points or fewer. Just try to have as few as possible. I call these approved gathering points, meaning you'll choose and approve what you use, and every place else is unapproved. I've provided an exercise file that lists these gathering points. Refer to this worksheet as you start making choices. The first gathering point is a physical inbox. This is where you gather physical, unprocessed objects. This includes paperwork, receipts, even cables, anything that hasn't been put away. The second gathering point is a portable inbox, the mobile extension of your workspace inbox. Ideally, it's something you take with you wherever you go. It's not the whole briefcase or planner, but one spot or pocket within that. The third gathering point is your notepad, either digital or paper. Use whatever works best for you. Notepads capture both general notes and unprocessed action items. The fourth gathering point is one email inbox. Now, you may have multiple email accounts. However, we want them all to go into one inbox. This will save time lost to checking many different accounts. The fifth gathering point is your primary messaging app. Some workplaces require a specific app for messaging about tasks or projects within a team. Other people use text messaging as their gathering point. And finally, the sixth gathering point is not required but given to you as an option. It's the wild card, meaning you can choose a gathering point that fits your unique way of working. Now that you have the overview, let's take a closer look at each. Your inbox is a powerful tool for keeping your workspace organized. Choose one large physical inbox to be the gathering point for all unprocessed physical items. Any unresolved object or paper should be tossed into this inbox. Ideally, the inbox will sit on your desk or next to your workspace. As you go through your day, if you see anything out of place, papers, tools, magazines, pick them up and put them in the inbox rather than putting them away. Then, at a scheduled time, you'll clear out that inbox using a simple and easy system I'll share with you later in the course. This will help you break a common and unproductive habit. Many people allow clutter to gradually pile up in different places. The piles get larger until they can't take it anymore. And then, in a burst of frustration, they spend hours putting everything away. I call it whirlwind organization, and it wastes time. We're going to replace that with a weekly habit. Now, how big should your inbox be? There's no right or wrong here, but it should probably be bigger than you think. Large enough to never get to the point of overflowing. If you only deal with a few papers each week, maybe a deep letter-sized box is enough. But if you deal with lots of large physical items, like product samples at an interior design company, you may need a large plastic storage container. When in doubt, go bigger than you think you need. This will make it easier to put unprocessed items in the inbox rather than letting them gather in unapproved areas. Take a moment and decide what inbox you'll use. If you don't have it yet, go get it. This small step begins your journey of taking control of your workspace. The second gathering point you'll choose is one portable inbox. This is the mobile extension of your physical inbox. You take it with you when you're out and about. As much as is reasonable, carry this with you. When someone hands you a receipt or piece of paper, put it in this portable inbox. I'm not referring to an entire backpack or padfolio or handbag, just part of it. You may have useful items that you carry in a bag, but only one pocket in that bag will be your portable inbox. You'll need a pocket that's large enough for the size of things you receive. So if you only get receipts, like I do, a pocket in a leather phone case may be all you need. When you get back to your workspace, you'll dump all your portable inbox's contents into your main physical inbox. I'll explain how to deal with that later in the course. A couple of comments. First, some may be uncomfortable with the idea of carrying around a large planner or bag wherever they go. If that's your preference, perhaps have a removable and mobile file folder. You can carry paper in the folder until you return to your larger bag. I don't recommend this because you may accidentally create unapproved gathering points, but some people make it work. Incidentally, I've consulted some clients who care about fashion and want to use a different handbag or satchel from time to time. In this case, you can use that removable pocket and switch it from bag to bag. Second, if you're trying to go paperless, you can mostly avoid the portable inbox by taking pictures of paperwork and adding them to a digital notepad. Or your portable inbox can act as a temporary staging area until you return to your workspace and carefully scan the documents. Take a moment now and decide which portable inbox you'll use. A notepad is a flexible gathering point you carry at all times to jot down ideas, notes, and action items. The notepad is unique in that it combines written information with unprocessed action items. There are two main options, digital and paper. Choose one or the other. Many tablets or phones allow for handwritten or quickly typed notes into a notepad app. I currently use a digital notepad on my phone to gather short notes, take pictures, or record voice or written notes to myself. I recommend choosing an app that syncs your phone, computer, and cloud together. Otherwise, you may end up accidentally creating unapproved gathering points. Some of my clients alternatively prefer the feel of a paper notepad. If you use a Padfolio, you can combine your notepad with your portable inbox and carry both gathering points with you. Others have success with a very small notepad they carry wherever they go. Whatever you choose, only have one active notepad at any time. Keep in mind a few best practices. First, because notepads will often combine information with tasks, be sure to indicate action items by using a symbol of some kind. In my case, I use an open checkbox, which lets me know that I need to process it. Second, if you're using a paper notepad, get in this habit. Every time you return to your office, rip off all the pages with any notes and put those pages into your physical inbox. This practice reduces switch tasking and ensures you don't miss action items. Last, after you process action items from note pages, archive them if they have any useful information. This is true for both paper and digital notes. Take a moment now to decide what kind of notepad gathering point you'll use. Email is a part of our everyday lives, especially at work. We can start taking control of it by reducing the number of apps we use for email. One best practice is to reduce the number of email gathering points you have, ideally one email inbox if possible. For example, I've worked with clients who have 10 or more email accounts, yet they've set everything to go into one email inbox. Now, some are concerned by this concept and want to keep work and personal separate. I understand. Some organizations or jobs simply won't permit that for legal and security reasons. If so, that's fine. Just consolidate as much as reasonable. The fewer gathering points you have, the less switching cost you'll pay, which leads to more free time and greater focus. Even if you go from 5 email gathering points to 2, you'll experience a big productivity boost. Now, because there are so many email apps available, I'm not able to offer a detailed walkthrough for each. For now, all you need to focus on is combining the flow of email so you use as few apps and inboxes as possible. A simple online search for combine email accounts and then the name of your preferred app is probably enough to find a tutorial on how to do this. Often, you can automatically have separate signatures depending on the account you're using. So a work signature appears when you're replying to work emails and a different signature for personal emails. By processing emails in one spot, you'll make processing more productive. Pause and consider the primary email app you'll use and if you're able to combine inboxes within that app. Messaging has become critical to our productivity. Many love it for the speed of communication it offers. Unfortunately, with that speed comes an abundance of switch tasking. A study by Rescue Time found that workers can only focus for about 6 minutes until they check instant messages or email. That's 10 times per hour. You can reduce attention switches by reducing the number of messaging apps you use and how often you check them. Even if you check your messaging app every hour, on the hour, you're still significantly reducing switch tasking. If you're a freelancer or entrepreneur on your own, then choosing to not use multiple apps is simple. But if you're working for an organization, this may require a friendly, open conversation with your team about the apps you're using. See if you can reduce an app or 2, as well as set expectations for reply times. You may also need to have a separate app for true emergencies. For example, a company may use an official chat for projects and tasks, but reserve text messages for emergencies only. If your workplace uses a second app, you can consider that a wildcard gathering point. Yes, it might bring your total above 6, but that's less distracting than mixing time-flexible messages with true emergencies. Be aware that if a work conversation becomes more involved than a quick answer or 2, it's probably more productive to switch to a phone call. You'll end up paying far less switching cost. Also be aware, many messaging apps, especially on social media, allow for routing messages to another approved gathering point, such as email. You can do a search to see if your app permits that. Take a moment to choose which messaging app you'll use as an approved gathering point. The 6th gathering point that you may have is the wildcard. This represents whatever optional gathering points you might need to fit in your situation. While ideally you won't need to use the wildcard at all, in some cases you may need more than one. For instance, you may use voicemail heavily in your work. If that voicemail doesn't send recordings to your email or messaging inbox, you could call this a wildcard gathering point. You may also be in the habit of using a digital task list or to-do list, one place to put unresolved items when they come to mind. Rather than operating directly from a to-do list, gather tasks there and then process them to be done at a specific scheduled time. I'll explain later in the course how to process every to-do that you gather. Social networking sites are also another wildcard option for some. For instance, if one app doesn't forward to your email, then you would need to check it separately. Some clients I've coached have a dedicated personal assistant, a person who handles their schedule and acts as a gatekeeper. They might be a wildcard gathering point if they remind you to do things. By the way, don't ask for reminders from friends or family members. They are not approved gathering points. In the end, the wild card is about flexibility. Not everyone's work situation is the same. So, if you need an extra gathering point, that's okay. Do what works for you. Just try to have as few gathering points as possible to help you maintain focus and reduce switch tasking. Pause and consider. Do you need a wildcard gathering point? If so, what will you use? Should you separate work and personal gathering points? In other words, should you have two of each kind of gathering point? Both a personal inbox and a work inbox, or a personal notepad and a work notepad? The more gathering points you have, the more switches you make. So extra ones can slow you down, increase mistakes, and add stress. I've found that my clients who process work and personal items from a combined gathering point have more free time because they're more efficient and focused. Be aware that you'll be processing or deciding what to do from these gathering points. That means you'll be scheduling time to complete them. Even if you process a personal task at work, you can schedule time to complete it outside of work hours. The idea is to avoid two of each kind of gathering point if possible. But for some, combining work and personal, it just isn't practical. For example, a single physical inbox combining both work and personal works well when you're working from home. But if you have to travel to work, you may need a second personal inbox at home to deal with unresolved tasks. Or with email, your work may require you to separate work and personal inboxes for legal or security reasons. It's okay if you need to separate a few gathering points. 6 or fewer is the ideal, but a couple of extra won't hurt you. If you're like most people and had between 30 and 40 gathering points when you started, even dropping down to 10 will be a huge time saver. Your ability to save time will increase if you can combine work and personal gathering points, and 6 or fewer is the ideal. But even if you need to double up, you can still succeed. We've now explored the roles the 6 approved gathering points play in your time management. Start using these gathering points from this moment forward. If you haven't done so, pause the course and decide which gathering points you'll approve using. I recommend having the gathering point selection worksheet on hand. Decide which specific tool you'll use for each: your physical inbox, your portable inbox, your notepad, either digital or paper, your email inbox, and your messaging app. Then also add a wildcard gathering point or two if necessary. All of these gathering points exist for one reason: for you to put things in them. If something's out of place or unresolved, put it in one of these approved gathering points. The next time you're tempted to write a note on the back of an envelope or stuff something in a drawer, pause and instead use one of your gathering points. Right now, you might be wondering how just putting stuff in boxes will help with time management. Please keep going. This is just one piece of a total productivity system. As you progress through this course, you'll see how the pieces fit together and how this simple habit will help you stay organized and save time. Now, let's explore the second principle of productivity: mind. Specifically, having a clear mind. A mind uncluttered with to-dos, action items, and unresolved concerns. A cluttered mind is constantly in a state of switch tasking. It's distracted, less creative, and less equipped to communicate productively with others. So, develop the habit of moving unresolved tasks from your mind and putting them into approved gathering points. In the previous chapter about space, you selected about 6 gathering points to keep your physical space organized. These gathering points can also keep your mind clear of clutter. When an unresolved task comes into your head, quickly put it into an approved gathering point. Let's say you're at your workspace and suddenly you remember you want to hang up a new picture on the wall. You could write yourself a note and put that note in your physical inbox. If you're away from your desk at lunch and you realize you forgot to send a file to a coworker, you could send yourself an email to take care of it. Maybe you're driving and you think of a project you need to work on at home. At a safe place to stop, you could dictate a message to your digital notepad. Use whatever approved gathering point works best for you in the moment. Just get the thought out of your head because your mind is not an approved gathering point. Over time, you may find that some gathering points work best for you. I find I'm most effective when I'm processing email, so I'll often email myself when these thoughts pop up. Play to your strengths. You can start using this habit right now. Did something come into your mind that was unresolved while you were watching this video? Put that thought into an approved gathering point right now. The more you practice this habit, the more your brain will become focused, creative, and ready to communicate. Having a clear mind sounds great, but what if you've accumulated years of unresolved to-dos? You'll want to do an initial mind clearing using the mental triggers exercise file. These quick mental prompts will bring up unresolved tasks, so you can move them out of your head and into approved gathering points. The process is simple. First, read one trigger on the list. Second, think for a moment about that trigger. Third, if any tasks come to mind, write them down and put them in an approved gathering point. Fourth, move to the next trigger and repeat. If nothing comes to mind when you read a trigger, that's fine. Just move to the next item on the list. It's like mining for gold. As you go through the list, often nothing will come to mind, but occasionally you'll hit a rich vein of unresolved tasks, a mental list, and you'll mine it for a while. Let's do a practice run together. Get your favorite gathering point ready, such as a notepad. I'll read some random triggers for you to think about. Write any unresolved task down in your gathering point. Ready? Let's begin. Filing. Gathering points. Areas to organize. Computers. Phones. And apps. How many items did you write down? Now you've got an idea of how this process works. In the next week, schedule an hour to go through the full list. I recommend finding a partner to help you. Having someone else read the list aloud will help you stay focused. Perhaps find a couple of hours where you can go through the list for each other. And if that's not an option, you can still do this by yourself. This simple mind-clearing activity leads to a feeling of relief. It's powerful, and it frees your mind to help you be at your very best. Once you've completed your first session of clearing your mind of unresolved tasks, you'll likely feel some initial relief. For some, it feels life-changing. For the first time in a while, they can focus on conversations. They feel more relaxed. Some even sleep better. This is just the beginning step. Over time, you'll become more practiced at avoiding mental clutter as you use approved gathering points for tasks instead of your mind. However, it's normal to miss things, to allow unresolved tasks to gradually accumulate in your head. Think about the mind-clearing exercise like a spring cleaning. Each time you use it, you'll free your mind from having to keep track of tasks, something it's not effective at doing. So, we need a schedule to clear those items out of your head. I recommend you redo this exercise every 3 months, once per quarter. At the scheduled time, go back through the mental triggers list, just like you did the first time. It might take an hour the first few times, but later, only take 30 minutes or less. Future mind-clearing activities will go faster and faster. Eventually, you'll only be looking for a few hidden tasks in the corner of your mind, rather than the initial download of years' worth of ideas. Go ahead now and schedule a 1-hour appointment every 3 months for the next year. In the notes, mention that you'll reuse the mental triggers list to uncover any unresolved tasks. This habit will keep your mind refreshed and focused. At this point, it's natural to be concerned about this huge list of tasks and action items you've cleared from your mind. When are you going to do all this stuff? It's okay to feel this way. We'll get there shortly. Continue with this course, and I'll guide you through how to deal with all of it in a timely way with as little stress as possible. I'll give you a simple system to take each item you gathered and decide what you're going to do with it, when you're going to do it, and where it belongs. Believe it or not, you do have enough time to get everything done. You just might not know it yet. For now, build the habit of clearing any task out of your mind the moment it begins to interrupt your thoughts. When that unresolved to-do pops into your head, put it into an approved gathering point. Do it even as you go through this course, or if you're in the middle of working on another project. Rather than getting distracted and chasing the new task, pause. Gather it into an approved gathering point and return to the project at hand. Yes, it's a brief attention switch, but it's less distracting than letting that task repeatedly interrupt your train of thought. Remember, your brain is not an approved gathering point. Leave yourself a message, get that task out of your head. Now let's cover the third principle, time. Specifically, consistently using your calendar to manage your time. It sounds simple, yet it deserves careful consideration. There are two main categories of calendar, paper or digital. Most people now are using digital calendars, which is what I recommend. But what about paper calendars? They're fast and they're simple, and there's something nice about writing your thoughts down by hand. If you choose to use a paper planner, get a weekly view planner that shows the hours of each day so you can budget your time effectively. However, I don't recommend paper planners because they're bulky. They're also difficult to use for recurring appointments. If you have a meeting with your team at the same time each week, you're going to have to recopy that appointment over and over. And finally, if you lose that planner, you lose all that information. So, I strongly recommend using digital calendar apps, ideally ones that sync across all your devices. That way, it's always up to date, close at hand, and your data is easily recoverable if you lose your phone. Now, the app you use is up to you. Choose something you're comfortable using. If your work uses a standard app for scheduling, it may be best to use that as your go-to calendar. Avoid using separate calendar apps for your work and personal life. Many apps allow you to create color-coded calendars that you can view overlapped on top of each other. That works because you can see everything together in one place. So, if you haven't already, take a moment now to choose the calendar app you'll use going forward. If you haven't been using it much, you're about to become better acquainted. In my decades of consulting people and organizations, I've found there are 6 fundamentals to help you get the most out of your calendar. First, think of your calendar as your time budget. When you schedule things into your calendar, think of it like withdrawing money from a bank account. We each have a maximum weekly limit of 168 hours. We need to live within that limit and never overdraw. Otherwise, we go into time debt and must pay interest on time. When we try to do too many things in too little time, we pay lots of switching cost. Things take longer, we make more mistakes, and we increase our stress. Use the calendar to track your time withdrawals so you can avoid overspending. This leads to the second principle: avoid double booking yourself. There's only one of you, so don't try to schedule 2 things at once. Otherwise, you create lots of time debt and switching cost. Third, never commit to an appointment without putting it into your calendar. Sometimes people casually say something like, "Let's do lunch next week." If you don't put that in your calendar, you put pressure on your mind to keep track of it, which often leads to lost time and feeling overwhelmed. If it's important to you, if it must be done, schedule it. Fourth, schedule buffer and travel time. Avoid having appointments that are back to back to back to back, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, with no room to breathe between them. Leave space for unexpected interruptions or just a moment to relax. And if you must physically travel from one meeting to the next, schedule that on your calendar. Fifth, think of your calendar as a commitment to others and to yourself. Stick to the time you budget in your calendar. The calendar isn't a place for tentative or perhaps. It's a place for you to choose what you'll do and when you'll do it. And if you're not committed yet, don't schedule it. And finally, think long term. Most feel like they don't have enough time to get everything done because they're thinking in terms of what can be done within 2 weeks. As you open your perspective to months and years from now, you'll realize you have an abundance of time. Schedule deeper into the future. These 6 mindsets lay the groundwork for using your calendar productively. There's one word that's more powerful than any other when it comes to focusing your time. That word is no. As you become more productive, others may see your success and want you to participate in new projects, but your time is limited. So whenever you say yes to one thing, you're essentially saying no to something else. To keep your previous commitments, you'll often need to decline new opportunities. You won't always say no, but it's important to say no more than you say yes. Sometimes a simple no thank you is all that's required. Here are a couple of tips to help with that. First, you might ask for the request through email or a message. This allows you to consider the request in a calm environment. You can assess whether you truly have the time to participate and prepare a diplomatic and kind response in case you need to decline. And let's be honest, some people might not follow through and send that email. Sometimes people ask for help on a whim because you're face-to-face. A brief delay gives them the opportunity to back out gracefully or not follow through. Second, sometimes saying no is often about asking the question, when? This is a way of saying not now, but later. Let's say your boss or a customer makes a request. You might say yes while asking for a specific when. Specifically ask for a completion date and time. Many delegate tasks to others without providing clear deadlines. This mistake causes confusion and wastes time. Instead, ask something like, when is the deadline for this report? That will help them get clear about their expectations while helping you prioritize your calendar. A tactful no is powerful. It can help you protect your time budget and focus your attention on what is most valuable. No is the most powerful word when it comes to focus. Some find it easy to say no to others, but struggle to say no to themselves. I often see this happen with my clients who are entrepreneurs or are in creative fields. When they try to pursue every opportunity at once, the lack of focus creates mediocre results. The easiest way to say no to yourself is to use a perhaps list. This is the home for every wonderful idea that you might do someday. It lets you capture every idea without tying up valuable and previously committed resources. When a new idea comes into your head, put it in an approved gathering point. Then, when you see that idea during processing and you're not yet committed to it, move it to the perhaps list. Create a recurring appointment to review that perhaps list, maybe once every 1 to 3 months. During the review, briefly consider each idea and either act on it, delete it, or leave it on the list for future review. In most cases, you'll leave these great ideas on the list, and that's okay. That means you're staying focused on what's most valuable. When is also a powerful word for saying no to yourself, meaning when is the best time to do this? When is the latest that I can complete this? Procrastination is often thought of as a negative, but there's a positive version. When you reasonably delay working on great ideas to a more appropriate scheduled time, you can complete current projects faster. You'll have greater focus in all the work you do. Think longer term, not what can be done in the next couple of weeks, but the next couple of months or years. Positive procrastination is your friend. So is learning the skill of saying no to yourself. Up to this point in the course, we've discussed the major principles of productivity. Congratulations on coming this far. You're on the right track. Now we're going to start implementing these principles. There are 3 things you'll want to do to prepare for the next section. First, be in your workspace. Second, budget time to complete these chapters. And third, have the items on the resource checklist on hand. First, complete the remaining chapters while in your primary workspace. This is essential because it's the laboratory for the science of time management. It's where you put principles into practice. If you have more than one workspace, use the spot where you spend the most time answering emails, making calls, and so on. Next, the following chapters are very hands-on, so they typically take around 2 to 3 hours to complete, maybe more depending on your level of chaos. Check your calendar and make sure you have enough uninterrupted time to complete these chapters, ideally in one sitting. And if not, perhaps schedule some time a few days from now to complete them. Finally, look at the items on the exercise file called Resource Checklist. If you already have these items on hand, great. If you're missing any items, try to get them by buying or borrowing them. At minimum, have all the required items at the top, the large boxes, the desk inbox, and your calendaring system. You may not need every item in the recommended or optional sections, but it's better to have them on hand. This reduces unnecessary delays, and later, if you didn't need something, you can always return it. This checklist includes an illustration of each item, as well as a brief explanation for why you may need it. Remember the motivation you wrote down? How you'd spend that extra free time? Well, you're about to make it a reality. Taking control of your workspace begins with gathering. Before we start, let me share a few best practices. You'll put anything that's unprocessed into an inbox. Processed means that you know what to do with it, you've scheduled when to do it, and it's where it belongs. So if any one of those three things is missing, what, when, or where, then an item is unprocessed and should be gathered. This initial gathering may go quickly if you have little clutter, or take a few hours if you have a lot. Most people have enough unprocessed items that they won't fit into one regular inbox. So that's where those large boxes on the resource checklist come in. They represent one temporary, extra large inbox. In the beginning, everything unprocessed will go in these boxes. Keep in mind that you don't need to gather things that are where they belong. I use this phrase, everything has a home and no visitors allowed. If something is in its correct home, it's where it belongs and doesn't need to be gathered. Think of a desk drawer that holds pens and nothing else. Since it's a home for just pens, you can leave them in there. But any visiting sticky notes or other random objects need to go in the inbox. Also, one more temporary instruction. Label that special desk inbox 1 week. After you complete your first gathering session, you'll take this label off. Why? As you gather items, ask one question. Will I need this during the next week? And if so, put it in the 1 week box rather than the other large boxes. This temporary separation will let you build your time management systems without falling behind. But beyond that one distinction, put absolutely anything else that's unprocessed into the other large boxes. Don't throw it away, don't sort, don't organize. Just put unprocessed items into the boxes. Now that you have those ground rules in mind, let's begin. Let's reduce the number of physical gathering points in your office. By now, you should have several large empty boxes plus your special desk inbox labeled 1 week. We're going to put everything that's unprocessed in these boxes. Here are a few examples. Random sticky notes go in the box because you'll start using your calendar for reminders. This one note needs to be dealt with this week, so we'll put that in the special desk inbox. Remember, everything has a home and no visitors allowed? All random objects that aren't where they belong should go into the large inboxes. Let's check the drawers and see what we've got here. Everything has a home and no visitors allowed. For example, this pair of scissors is sharing the home with pens, so it needs to go. By the way, divider trays or labels are a great way to take a drawer that's just wide open and turn it into a place where you can have many different homes. This is where a labeler comes in handy. Labels allow you to quickly find things and put things away. For this example, I'll create a label called pens. Here's a good rule when creating homes. Put the things you use the most closest to you. Something you use multiple times a day, like your phone or headphones, might go on your desk. Something you use maybe once a week, such as a stapler, can go in desk drawers. And put something you use less than once a month in cabinets or out of the office. As you gather, try not to throw anything away, except for maybe food trash like a candy wrapper. Throw everything else in the big inbox. We're developing a habit to help you avoid the cycle of whirlwind organization. Keep telling yourself, everything has a home, no visitors allowed. Throw any item that violates that rule into the inbox. In summary, as you gather, first, move all unprocessed items into one big inbox. Second, put any items that need to be resolved in the next week into the temporary 1-week inbox. Third, don't throw anything away. Fourth, gather anything visiting in the wrong home. Fifth, dump any miscellaneous drawers or files into the inbox. Sixth, create new homes as necessary. And seventh, label homes as you create them. Now it's your turn. Ready? Pause this course and gather everything from your office and put it all into your big inbox. You've got this. Gathering from your desk to your inbox is a great first step. Now let's consider a few other places where you may have unapproved gathering points. Look around your workspace. Are there any places you missed? Maybe behind a cabinet where papers got lost? How about closets or storage areas? Notice any visitors in the wrong home? Take your time and search your workspace. A little extra gathering time now may save you hours in reduced switching cost later. And the more you practice gathering, the stronger this habit becomes. You may notice something that's bigger than the boxes. For example, as you look around your workspace, you might ask, what would I like to change? Perhaps installing shelves or hanging a picture. If so, make a note about that large object and then put that note in your inbox. After finishing up with your workspace, consider other locations you counted on your Gathering Points worksheet. What about your car, or your basement or garage? You may also need to gather from those areas. But don't interrupt this course if going through those places will take a while. Instead, pull out your calendar and budget time, 30 to 60 days from now, to gather items from places outside of your workspace. For larger areas, give yourself about an hour per room. At the end of all this gathering, you might look at all those boxes and feel uncomfortable. Some of my clients are relieved, while most are a little overwhelmed or stressed. That's okay. You'll begin experiencing relief as you move forward with the course. I'm about to show you how to handle each item you gathered. We'll take one step at a time, helping you learn new habits that will relieve stress and become natural to you.